It would seem to me that everybody in this room is financially included, and it's probably safe to say that everybody here is also economically included. So maybe we are preaching to ourselves, and the question should be, why should it matter that others are not included? And that speaks to what I think is the biggest misconception of all. We think economic inclusion is about those who are excluded. That is completely wrong. And I would take a minute to demonstrate that we're wrong. I have identified 4 key economic groups in what we do. And for this purpose, I've included the government as an economic group. So we look at the wealthy people who are the owners of capital. We look at what we typically describe as the middle class, who are people who are highly skilled workers. We look at the government, an economic agent as well. And then we look at those who are excluded. And my argument is that the greatest benefit of economic inclusion goes to the top 3, not even to the 4th. Because if we make the case that we are doing this as a charity, that we are doing it because we care about those who are excluded and we want to help them, then the motivation to really do this would be weak. That's the reality. Charity has never created economic growth anywhere in the world. So if you ask me how, for instance, are the owners of capital or the wealthy who can create growth, how are they going to benefit from financial and economic inclusion? Think about it this way. Whatever you produce, somebody has to consume it. If there are no consumers, you have no basis for production. I like the reference to Alhaji Aliko Dangote, for instance. When we did the program that brought a lot of farmers out of poverty, people would probably wonder how will a billionaire like Alhaji Dangote benefit. But the reality is that those farmers are buying many more bags of cement than they would have bought if they were not financially and economically included. And if you underestimate the power of farmers buying 10 bags of cement, multiply that by 50,000, for instance, and you realize that they are a bigger customer for him than Julius Berger would probably be if you continue on this level. So even the wealthiest people and those who control capital are significant beneficiaries of economic inclusion of the poor. I mean, there are data that suggests that a lot of these farmers form the bulk of those who went on Hajj. You wouldn't have known that people who own airlines, for instance, would benefit from the economic inclusion of farmers in Kebbi, and so on and so forth. So the case for even the owners of capital amongst us to see the benefit of economic inclusion is strong.
I was saying that if you're going to walk through a swamp, please secure yourself a boot. Don't wear your coat shoe. So if we move with too much optimism, we'll complicate matters for ourselves. Let's take a totally ignored aspect of inclusion. KB is producing rice, isn't it? And like I said, it's not because KB had rice or fertile soil. It's because somebody thought strategically about how that could be combined with something else. Unfortunately, the source has emerged. So my emphasis is getting the right things. But let's even take that. As you are aware, government is, I think, planning to construct 40 more dams this year. And during the Shagari, not President Shagari, the Minister for Agriculture, a lot of dams are built all over the country. And for us, it's an exciting thing. But we do not pay attention to the impact of that on economic exclusion. There are riverine-dependent economies that disappeared totally because of that. So whereas you're there building your dam, more and more dams across the Benue, across the Niger, local water transportation has disappeared, and there is the means of livelihood of some communities. Fishing has disappeared. Crab farming, you know, crab thrives on the floodplains. So, in the absence of a clear national strategic focus on inclusion, on economic inclusion, you're going to have silos of intervention. Yeah. All of them worsening matters to everybody. So I just chose that example of, this is wonderful. Oh, we're now going to have more dams. As you're building the dams, some people are enthusiastically working towards having a port, an inland water port in Onitsha. And the question is, are they going to buy pure water for it? Because a port needs water. They say, no, we'll dredge. When you get a bigger ditch, does that translate into more water coming? The islands you see on the Niger were not there years back is because the water level has dropped. So You find the absence of a complete strategic perspective that includes the ecological. Because when you're talking the political economy of the inclusion, there are 3-4 key elements. Political decision-making process and what informs it, the economic decisions of a country and what drives it, and then the ecological impact, which could be leveraged for the sort of thing KB and Lagos are doing. Now, the essence of that integration is what I'm calling attention to. That's not pessimism. Right. That let's not speak and dream and rejoice and go home. Right. SEED's document carries the same thing you have in ERSG, the need for state governments to buy in, and they're actually buying in. We had SEED's needs document, we had SEED's. No state did anything with SEED's. We've had transformation agenda, we've had all the others, and more coming.
Very interesting conversation so far. It is true that government is supposed to be a force that is removing impediments on the path of growth. Government is supposed to be an enabler, and that is what government is trying to do. This government has not in any way sought to be in any business. We have been, over the past 2 years, engaging on a continuous basis the private sector. The ERGP itself was built together with the private sector. And every quarter we have a meeting and discuss one aspect of business or the other. What is the purpose of that? Trying to find out what are the challenges, how do we remove them? And we're not sitting back and assuming we know the challenges. So we engage the private sector. What problems do you have? How do you think we should address it? And then we come to a consensus and we'll move forward. We have very strongly tried to address the issue of competitiveness because it is key to increasing productivity. Competitiveness locally as well as with our neighbors and the global market. If local produce are more expensive than the ones that are coming from China, people will buy the cheaper ones. So it's important to address the ease of doing business, to make sure that there is physical infrastructure that is required to make business cost low.
Well, we'll take a break now. And when we come back, experts prefers ideas towards achieving industrialization in Nigeria. To stay with us.